All right, guys, so we are doing today my favorite thing ever, and that is the unit circle. Whoop, whoop. So fun. Listen, I know that there's a lot of things online, but I promise you there's a method to the madness. If you do this by hand, you're more likely to remember everything than if you don't, okay? But here's what we're going to do with our unit circle. Yesterday, you went around and you counted all the different angles, right? Today, we're actually going to figure out what these coordinate points are, every single one of them that are around this circle. Now, keep in mind, this is a unit circle, and so remember, the radius is 1. So if we start with this particular point, at the positive x-axis, this point is the point 1, 0. Up here at 90 degrees, which is also pi over 2, this coordinate point is 0, 1, okay? If I go around to this point over here on the negative x-axis, remember this is 180 degrees. It is also pi, 1 pi, right? This point is the point negative 1, 0. If I keep going and I get down here to 270 degrees, if I count how many pi's this is, remember this is 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2. Okay, so down here at the negative y-axis, this is the coordinate 0, negative 1. Okay, and then this, remember, is 0 degrees. It's also 360 degrees. It's also 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, which is 2 pi. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, just to make this a little bit easier, I think, for you to kind of get an idea of what's happening, is that we're going to start with our 45-degree angle. So this is our reference angle that we're going to be doing, and we're going to go find the coordinates of these points in the middle. Those are our reference angles at 45 degrees, okay? So here's how this works. Here's what you're going to do. We're going to, from this point right here, we're going to drop a perpendicular. So I'm making a right triangle, okay? And remember, this triangle is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. And so the coordinates of this point are going to be, because this is isosceles, they're going to be the same, okay? So if this is my angle in here at 45 degrees, and I do the cosine first, I get adjacent over hypotenuse, I end up getting, for the cosine, I get root 2 over 2. And then for the sine, so I do the opposite over hypotenuse, I get the y, which is root 2 over 2. So this idea of the x and the y are huge for us today. What's also huge is that cosine is x and sine is y, okay? All right, so let's go do the next one. So I just went ahead and highlighted this with my Sharpie, and I colored it in purple so you can kind of get a better idea of what this triangle looks like. So let's go do the next one, okay? So this next angle, so remember, if I do my counting, okay, this was 1 pi over 4, which was also 45 degrees. This is 2 pi over 4. This angle is going to be 3 pi over 4, okay? And if I add 90 degrees to 45, I'm going to end up with a 135-degree angle. So what we're going to do, again, I'm going to turn this into a triangle. So here's my hypotenuse. I'm going to drop a perpendicular, okay, and turn this into a triangle so that you get a better idea. And remember, this is our reference angle right inside, okay? So the coordinates of this point, using this xy cosine sine idea, okay, my cosine, my x value, because we're in quadrant number 2, we're negative, so this is going to be a negative root 2 over 2. Okay, notice that my y though is positive up here, so my coordinates for this point is a negative x value and a positive y value. Okay, all right, so I colored that one in so you can see I'm already starting to get goosebumps. I'm telling you, this is my favorite thing. It is just the coolest thing ever. Let's go do the next one. So as I make my hypotenuse, okay, and I drop a perpendicular, remember, all of these angles, all of these triangles, all of these things that we're doing, we're using reference angles, and reference angles go to the x-axis, okay? So here I have my next point, okay? The angles, right? So we're at 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4. This is 5 pi over 4. And if I add another 45 degrees, I'm at 225 degrees. But the coordinates of this point, because we're in quadrant number 3, my x is negative and my y is negative. Now, this is the 45-degree reference angle, right? And so we know that our sides are going to be root 2's over 2. So it's negative root 2 over 2 and negative root 2 over 2. Okay? All right, so I went ahead and finished up the triangle, and I went ahead and finished up the coordinates of this point. So I want you to be thinking as you're looking at it, why is this value positive and why is this value negative? All right, here we go. So for this next one, we're going to do 30, 60, 90 triangles, okay? And again, we're finding the points that go around, right? Now we've already done these 45-degree angle, reference angles in the middle, so we're not going to worry about those. We're just going to do the ones that we have labeled, okay? So if you did your counting yesterday, right, this is 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6, right, which is the same thing as pi, 7 pi over 6, 8 pi over 6, this was 9, this is 10 pi over 6, 11, and then 12 pi over 6 became a 2 pi. The other thing that you can do is count by 60 degrees. So if you counted by 60 degrees, you would come all the way up here. This is 1 pi over 3. Another 60 degrees would put you at 120, which is 2 pi over 3. Another 60 degrees would give you 3 pi over 3. Another 60 degrees would put you down here at 240, so that's 4 pi over 3, 5 pi over 3, and then 6 pi over 3. So see how that counting thing can kind of work for your benefit? It's kind of a cool thing. So here's the other thing. When you look back at your chart, 30, 60, 90 triangles involve root 3 over 2 and 1/2. Now, before I start drawing you some triangles, I want to get out my handy dandy calculator. I'm going to do something that seems really silly, but I promise there's a method to the madness. I'm actually going to type into my calculator the decimal for 1/2. So if I do 1 divided by 2, you can see that it's 0.5. Okay? If I type in the decimal for root 3 over 2, and I'm trying to figure out what that is as a decimal, right? So root 3 over 2 is 0.866. So between these two decimals, 0.5 and 0.866, which one of these decimals is biggest? This one is, right? The root 3 over 2 is the larger one. 1/2 is the smaller decimal. So that means when you build your triangles that 1/2 is going to be the small side. Okay, 1/2 is the small side. Root 3 over 2, this is the longer side. Okay, so let's go start with 30 degrees and let's build this triangle. So we're talking about this angle right here. I'm going to drop a perpendicular. Okay, and so I'm looking at this triangle. And notice this is my short side. This is my long side. So when I go to write the coordinates of this point, okay, since x is the long side, x is going to get my root 3 over 2. Since y is the short side, the y coordinate is going to be a 1/2. I hope that was clear. Let's go do it again. This time we're going to go up to 60 degrees. So we're looking at this triangle. right here. So let me go drop my perpendicular. I'm looking at this triangle, okay? Remember, this is my reference angle inside of here, okay? So when I go to find these coordinates, okay, I'm gonna put my X number first, and on this triangle, X is my short side, so X is gonna get my 1/2. Y is the long side, and so Y is gonna get the √3/2. All right, if I keep going and I go do the next one, so here's a triangle. Let me go get this, drop this perpendicular and build it. Okay, remember you're always going to the x-axis. This is my reference angle in here. And so as I look, my x always comes first, y is going to come last, right? My x value is my short side, and it's negative because we're in the second quadrant. So that x is negative 1/2. My y is the long side, and it's positive, so I get √3/2. All right, so I went ahead and drew in the next triangle for you. Let's go find the coordinate points. So my next one, I'm down here, by the way, at 150 degrees or at 5π/6. So my x coordinate is negative because we're in the negative direction, right, in that quadrant. And it's the long side, so I'm going to put a negative √3/2. And then my y is positive, and it's going to be a 1/2. Okay? Oh, now isn't this the coolest thing? Every time I do this, I have students that tell me they look like TaiFighters. I just think it's the coolest picture ever. All right, so we've got so far some of our points filled in. We just need to go do these last few, okay? This one down here, remember x comes first. My x is my long side, so it's negative √3/2. My y is my short side, so it's a negative 1/2, okay? When I go to do this point over here, my x value is the short side, and so this time that's the 1/2, but we're going to make it negative because we're in quadrant 3. Your y value is the long side, and so we're going to call that one negative √3/2. Okay? The next, we can skip these, right? Because we know that this point is just 0, -1. We already had that labeled on the other one. So let's go do the next one. So we're here. My x value is positive this time, and it's the short side. So my x value is going to be 1/2. My y value is the long side, and it's a negative because it's in the fourth quadrant, and so it's the negative √3/2. My next one, x is positive again, but it's the long side, and so it's going to be √3/2. And the short side is going to be a negative 1/2. Okay? So now that we have all of these points, we have 30 degrees, 60 degrees, we have 45 degrees. What we can start doing next week is we can start finding the sine, the cosine, and the tangent of all of these points. And again, the goal is to have this memorized, but I'm telling you, I'm going to have you be doing so many different things, you're not even going to know that you have it memorized, okay? All right, so here is your goal. Your goal is to put these two things together. Okay, I have attached on Google Classroom for you these circles. You're welcome to print them out and color them just like I did. If we were in class, by the way, that's what I would have you guys do. But don't feel like you have to do it. You can make a Google slide. So I have attached a Google slide for you as well that just has this picture in it. So you're welcome to use that. And create this, but I want you to put them together. So I want the 30, 60, 90, and the 45 degrees all together, okay, on one circle. Your other goal is to fill this out. So this is also attached as just a file. It's also attached on Google Slides in there, so you're welcome to go in and just fill this out. So just be really careful. These lines in the inside of this circle, this is for degrees, this line is for your radians, and these are of course for the points. Okay, so again, there's a degree line, there's a radian, so that you can kind of get it all done. Again, when you go to do the little guy and you go to put these together, I definitely want you to use some colors These just happen to be the only colors that I had because I don't have a pencil sharpener at home, so I guess I gotta go get that. But anyway, again, this is like my favorite thing ever. I hope that you guys have a lot of fun with it too.